Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me, Darwin Oracle. I received a question today in my inbox from a subscriber who had watched my previous videos on Beyonce and Kim Kardashian. And this person has asked if I could do one for Chris Brown and Rihanna. Of course. I don't think of them as a couple, so I suppose that's why I didn't choose them. If they were together, they would certainly be a power couple. I shuffled the cards and I kept noticing that the top card was always reversed. Every time I shuffled, every time I cut the deck, there were always reversed cards at the top. So before I even turned the cards over, I felt like Chris Brown and Rihanna don't go there. It's not a good place. It's not a productive and healthy relationship. That is just my first instinct. Upon turning the cards over, there were a couple of strong, well, three actually, major arcana in the spread, and also quite a few swords cards as well. And swords cards in a place that indicate stress, frustration, anxiety, unhappiness. So if I was going to answer the question about Chris Brown and Rihanna, I would say that if she felt like going back to him, not to do it. I don't deny that there is that soul attraction, but I'm not getting it up in this spread. I'm not seeing that they are in fact soulmates. The Lover's card, when it comes up in a reading, it makes people feel happy. Oh, yes, I'm in love. But the Lover's card can often mean not just a romantic relationship, but a soul relationship with someone. It could be a friend or a family member, someone that you feel you've had a connection to and you're drawn to. I don't feel that that's Chris Brown and Rihanna. If anything, their situation is young love. And it's very hard to forget your first love. Anyone can tell you that. And if they haven't, then I'm saying now, your first love will always remain your strongest memory. And quite often you'll have feelings for that person that might not be healthy considering the situation that's happened. And I feel that this is the case with Chris Brown and Rihanna. There is no chance for a reunion. And if there is, the outcome would not be a positive one for her anyway. So the first card that's come up is the reversed Three of Swords. So the card itself is very dark. And if this is their current relationship, it talks about sorrow, it talks about separation, it talks about alienation and grief and, coming to a realization that those two together as a couple is not an ideal situation. It's been tried and tested before and it hasn't worked. The next card, the obstacle, the Ten of Pentacles, is Chris Brown himself. Because he is a very wealthy young man, this indicated by the Pentacles. He has worked hard for everything that he's achieved. He can be sweet and charming. But as you know, there is that flip side to his character where he lashes out. He might be abusive, not only towards women, but to the general public, the paparazzi, etc. So there's the two sides to this man, but there's no doubt that he has worked hard to get to where he is, and financially he's well established, and that would be attractive to anyone. But Rihanna isn't anyone. She is even more successful. She has worked even harder than Chris Brown. So the unconsciousness behind the card is the Chariot. So the two people represented in this major arcana are two people going down separate pathways. Their union could never be a happy one because both of them are moving in different directions. And that's all I can really say about that card. They're going full steam ahead. As you can see from the horses, they're galloping, they're pulling their cart, they're pulling their success behind them. But the horses are veering off into separate directions. So I see them going down very different pathways in the future. And I pray for Chris Brown in the sense that I don't want him to go down a dark path. I feel that he is someone who has created success young and been immensely successful, but may have people around him that don't genuinely have his best interests at heart. So the past, how does the past affect the possibility of a relationship? Another major arcana, judgment. I think the status on their relationship has been through the media so many times. I think for Rihanna to go back to him after the photos emerged of her being physically abused by him, they both, the bed's been made and they have to lie in that. So even if they truly loved each other, those events have changed people's viewpoints of their relationship forever. And I think once a man hits a woman, no matter what the excuse, whether they're drugged up or off their faces or purely jealous, it's not a healthy relationship. And if you do believe the media, he hasn't changed. He still flips out, even if it's once a year. But why risk it? And this is for any of the girls watching tonight. If you are being physically abused, mentally abused by a man in your life, you need to move on. And if you want to write to me, I can give you some advice privately, but I wouldn't recommend that anyone stay in that situation. So that's the past. Judgment. It's gone and it's done and dusted. They're not getting back together. So the possible future outcome is for Rihanna, the Queen of Cups. So this is in line with the final card. It's saying the possibility of where she could be. So I don't want to say that she's an angel in that. Rihanna can be just as manipulative. She can definitely play the media, for example. And she is her own person. She's a Bayesian, Barbadian chick. And those girls are pretty sassy and smart. So she's not an angel, but at the same time, she is a queen. She is an independent woman. And I think anyone that goes out with Rihanna in the future, I can't even imagine, I couldn't even put a name to someone that would be able to hold that woman and fulfill all her fantasies and desires. I feel that Rihanna will have a string of men fulfilling different parts of what she needs. She will have a lover. She will have someone who gives great business advice. She will have someone that she just wants to hang out with like a brother. She needs to have all these influences around her. I don't think Rihanna will ever settle with one man, at least not until her 30s and well into her 30s. She enjoys men too much. And I think going back to Chris, that's going to be a real problem for him because of his jealous nature. While I was shuffling the cards, not only did I notice that the first card for every break that I did was a reverse card, a card also fell out. And as you know, if a card falls out, I like to include that in the reading. And that was the Nine of Swords. So this is a card that wanted to come out. It wanted to be seen. Chris Brown and Rihanna, Nine of Swords. This is a card of anxiety, depression, stress, unhappiness, feeling like you can't go on. So the relationship would be horrible for both parties. They're not suited to each other at all. This is a card that preludes high anxiety, stress, thoughts of suicide, that sort of thing. So in conjunction with the other cards such as Judgment, I would say that to go back to each other would just cause a huge amount of unnecessary stress and pain and heartache, anxiety, sleepless nights for both parties. Not worth it. So yeah, Rihanna as a person, she's someone who will need many men to satisfy her. And I don't mean that in a sexual way. I think if a girl has too many male friends, she's called a slut. But that's not what she is. She's someone that gathers energy from all the different people and what they can give her. So the immediate future outcome for this relationship is the Nine of Wands. If you can see that card, it shows a man standing behind 4 wands, covered in, you know, either regrowth or blood or sweat or tears. The small red pieces on there, however you want to interpret it. And then 5 more wands holding back a lion. I think there is passion. There is this kind of, as I was saying before, first love. But they need to keep those thoughts back in the background, because if they don't get over each other, this is the lion, that's their love, their passion. They need to keep that in the background because it's stopping them from moving forward. So until they forget about each other, there's always going to be pressure put on, especially for Chris, I think, showing the male form there, for him to find a relationship that is happy and healthy because of this whole in the background relationship with Rihanna and the fact that he secretly pines for her. So the 7th card is sort of related to the 3rd card, where here they are going their separate ways. And I truly hope that the Wheel of Fortune shines on both of those young people, because they are amazingly talented. I really like Chris Brown's music. I feel like when I'm picking, you know, the kids up from school and the other parents are really boring, I think they listen to opera and that sort of thing. You know, I love Rihanna and I love Chris Brown, and of course I'd love to see them happy ever after. But I think this next card is saying that for both of them to go their separate ways, to forget about the other person totally, make a conscious choice to do that, because the wheel is turning in their favour. I feel that success, more hits, more music will come from focusing on what is important for them, and that is the music. But I feel that we're going to hear from both of them very, very, very soon on a musical level. Hopefully not in a we're getting back together, because I feel that, as represented in the card that fell out, the 9 of Swords, that it would be a destructive, painful, time-consuming, time-wasting type of relationship. So yeah, the Wheel of Fortune's turning in their favour, and why not? They're both amazingly talented. And, you know, like I was saying before, I feel that Chris Brown is like a child. When I see how he behaves, it kind of reminds me of the lashing out that my 5-year-old does. He's not been taught to control the emotions, or he feels that he needs to protect what is his, and therefore lashes out in a way that's not very adult-like. But he is young. My goodness, we have a saying here in Australia, young, dumb and full of cum. So that's kind of where he is, that's the stage of life. Now, the next card is the 10 of Cups, and that is their surroundings, or what you want to be their surroundings, the 10 of Cups. And that is happy ever after, getting married, picket fence, you know, have a baby and live happily ever after. So both of them, you know, that's what you, the person that's asked the question, you know, that's what I think you kind of hope for them, but it's not going to happen. I don't think that Chris Brown and Rihanna, that's kind of where they probably saw that their future was going to be, but I don't see that as being a reality. And I hope I'm not wrong and that she's not pregnant and that they're married and engaged, because that could also be that card, and maybe that is Wheel of Fortune. We'll have to watch and see, actually. So I'll date this. It's September the 3rd, 2014. 10 of Cups. So hopes and fears, 6 of Swords. So this section here going into the future, look, it's got sentiment towards them being together. So the Wheel of Fortune, something happens. They do a collaboration together maybe. 10 of Cups, they start talking about love and romance and, you know, the white picket fence. The next card is the hopes and fears. I think That is a card about insight, about balance, about looking at past events and questioning what went right and what went wrong. The man's doing a balancing act. The leg is in the past, but he's looking into the future, into the light. So if they were to consider a relationship, I think they both have the same fears about, will the past come back to haunt them? Will it just be a repeat of the past relationship? And like I said, Rihanna is no saint, you know. She loves men. I won't say that she flirts with them, but her personality is one that she's very open, and it could be perceived that way by a jealous partner. So, you know, getting together, I doubt is going to happen, because I think that they'll get to this stage of the hopes and fears where they're thinking, you know, we hope for good things, but we fear that what happened in the past, as indicated by judgment, would happen again. The final card, and you know, this is one of my least favourite cards for the end of a reading, because it leaves it so open-ended. It's reversed. It's the Seven of Cups. And the Seven of Cups shows many possible pathways. Some good, some bad. Happy, snakes, serpents, one's even covered with a handkerchief, to show that we don't really know what the future is. And that's why I don't like this card, because when people want some form of closure and I say, well, actually you've got many different options to choose from, and it's up to you to choose the right one. So Rihanna and Chris Brown, if you're watching, you have choices. You can get together. You can become friends. You can collaborate. You can stay separate. The right choice is can only be made by the two parties involved, and they haven't yet made that decision. But if I could just go back to the Nine of Swords over here to say that the past was certainly not one that ended in a favourable event, which is beating someone up. So I pulled a second card for the final card, which was the Five of Swords. And it's obviously, as I said, there's quite a few swords, the Nine of Swords, the Six of Swords, starting off with the Three of Swords and finishing with the Five of Swords, which is, again, you know, if you are considering getting back together with Chris, or Chris, you're thinking about getting back together with Rihanna, I would really take some time to not write down a list, but to think about whether that is the right thing to do. Take a step back, look at your past experiences, you know, concentrate on what, I wouldn't say concentrate, you know, put the swords down and come to a decisive realisation about, is the relationship really the right thing to do, or is passion the main driving factor? And I will say it again, your first love, you will never forget your first love. And that's what they are to each other. They're not soulmates, but they are first loves. They were young kids getting successful at the same time. They would have shared so many memories. But is it worth pursuing the relationship when everything else about it was volatile and destructive? So to both people, I would say, put your swords down and really look back at the past and question whether it is the right thing to do. Sometimes a tarot reader will look at the card that is at the very bottom of the deck. So once you've shuffled, so here's my deck. So once I've shuffled, and see there's another reverse card at the top. Once I've shuffled, you can turn over and you can see the card at the bottom, which I've taken off already, represents what's furthest away in regards to their relationship getting together. So the furthest card away from their situation and their future outcome is the Sun. So happiness will not come from this relationship. I think that Chris Brown and Rihanna are best left as a partnership in the past. They both need to follow the lesson in the Nine of Wands They need to move on and actually not forget about each other, but in order for them to move on and to find love again, they need to put that part of their life in a box, close it, throw away the key, and move on. They are both so very young, and it would be a shame that they miss opportunity at finding someone else. Although I feel that for Rihanna it's come up that she doesn't need a single man. But I think Chris Brown could do with a very good woman. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to hearing your feedback on this spread. Thank you very much. Good night.